Hello there and welcome back to another watercolour tutorial. So today we're doing a requested video. Both Rachel Rose and Emily's Art Cart asked in my previous video whether I could make a tutorial on how to paint a lighthouse. So that's what we're going to attempt today. So I have a little bit of experience painting lighthouses, but I'm just going to try and bring my usual style of painting general buildings into the lighthouse structure. So of course, before we start doing any drawing or painting, we need to actually find something to paint. So a quick search on Pinterest brought up a really pretty lighthouse that I've actually never seen before, and it's got a beautiful coloured navy blue paint around it, and the roof on the building next to it also has that navy blue in tin or tiles. I can't actually see exactly what the roof's made out of, but I do love a good navy blue paint job. That's why I painted my studio in that colour, so I thought yes, we're going to paint this one today. So now that we've found our subject to paint, let's get into the whole sketching process. So I've just sketched out the top part of the lighthouse. I'm just getting to the bottom now. And at this point, when you are doing the light sketch, it's more just eyeballing things to see what the average distance is between certain structures of the lighthouse. So, like for example, I've got the railing up the top, the start of where the railing is. It's important to be able to estimate how far down like structures are in the lighthouse. So for example, there's like a door or window. I don't know if it is a door. I don't know why you'd have a door right in the middle of nowhere just to step out into open air. But anyway, so there's something coming out of the lighthouse just a bit under halfway down. So I'll just estimate that that's about there, and I'll just put a very basic rectangle there, and we can fill that in with more details later. And then you've also got the chimney of the house, which the top of the chimney is just a bit underneath that door on the lighthouse. We're going to call it a door just for simplicity's sake. So that's where I'll estimate the chimney for the house is. And with that, I can keep working my way down the picture and hopefully have all the dimensions reasonably well. I mean, if you know my drawings quite well, they're not completely accurate. I do take a bit of, what do you call it, like artistic design, artisticness into it. I'm not a trained art person, so sorry about my lack of arty words, but creative, oh, what's the word? I think it's creative license or something, whatever. Anyway, nothing's exact in my paintings, but that's a style that I sort of like anyway. But I do want things to sort of represent what they were originally. We try and get a little bit of accuracy here. So what was I getting at? Oh yes, the reason I started talking was I was working my way down this lighthouse and I was thinking, oh, the bottom of the page is getting pretty close now, and I'm a bit worried that I'm going to run out of page, which is the good thing about like digital drawing and stuff, because if this was like on an iPad, then I could just like copy everything and then move it up the page. But if I have a major screw up like that on paper, then you've got to rub it all out and start again, which I didn't really want to do. But I think we may have enough space here to fit everything in, so I don't have to go and rub everything out again. I've just drawn a line at the bottom of the lighthouse because that's sort of halfway along the house wall, the little cottage wall. I'll just add a little bit more to the bottom of the lighthouse, and that will be the base complete. Oh, it's a rough sketch, this one. I always get slightly nervous when recording videos when I'm actually trying to show people how to do things, because imposter syndrome takes over and suddenly I'm just like second guessing all my movements. I think I've spoken about that before, maybe very briefly in a previous video. It's just second guessing what you're doing, and also thinking like, if I'm making a tutorial on how to paint something, I should know how to paint that thing. But if you're filming the process, I mean, like, I'm not going to get everything perfect in this sketch, and I don't want to like accidentally mislead someone into thinking that I know what I'm talking about. I don't know, I'm rambling at the moment. I don't know if I should have my audio just running while I'm trying to sketch here. It'd also make me take like twice as long to actually do a sketch. But here we are. So I think that's an okay sort of placement for the house. It looks slightly crooked, but I sort of like that. So we'll keep that for now. I mean, the main suggestion for the video was how to paint a lighthouse, so if the little cottage on the side looks crap, then it doesn't matter because I'm actually meant to be showing how to paint a lighthouse, not a cottage. So we'll leave that. So we've got the basic outline, the very basic outline of a lighthouse. I'll also just very lightly place where I want like the cliff to be, so it's just doesn't really go that far behind the lighthouse and the cottage, so we'll just put it like up a couple mils above the lighthouse. And then you've got a lot of fence line going around. You've got a road, it looks like, so we can just put like a little light road there. Feeling like Bob Ross. And then there's like a hill, so I will just lightly put a little hill there, and I can do something with that later, we hope. And then there's the horizon, and that sort of comes like just above the chimney, so like a very light and reasonably straight line can just go there, and I can deal with that later. I also just realised that the cottage on the side has 2 chimneys, so you know, we'll put a rectangle there. Okay. Now let's get into actually adding some more details, and before I do that I need to quickly sharpen my pencil because I'm not organised and I didn't do that beforehand, so just bear with me. Okay, so now that I actually have a sharp pencil I can put in better details for the painting. So we're just going to work our way from the top to the bottom of the lighthouse and just sort of follow the major things that stand out about it. So at the top you've got like this ball-shaped thing. It's probably an antenna or something. I don't know. I don't know that much about lighthouses, apart from the fact, okay, I've got a little fun fact here, I'm gonna get distracted, that apparently the design of lighthouses, you know how sometimes they have stripes around them or something like that, each one is unique, like you'll never find 2 lighthouses completely designed and painted the same way. Or at least that's a fact in Australia, but I assume that's worldwide, so every lighthouse is apparently unique, so there you go. Who says I'm not educational? Okay, let's stop dilly-daddling around and actually do something now. So I'm just going to go over the outlines. So like we've got this top roof of the lighthouse that has a couple of lines coming down from it, so we'll just put those ones in. And that sort of adds, like it gives it a bit of a round look, because you've got these fanning lines, and as they get closer to the edge of the roof they're getting closer together basically, so it adds to the perspective that this thing is round. Then just underneath that you've got another slight lip that comes out before it gets to the glass windows. I will include that because I think that will look like a really nifty little detail when everything's painted, especially because it's a very dark blue, basically black, so that will have a really nice bit of contrast there. Then straight under that lip you've got the outside of the glass casing. And then for this glass casing, like you've got individual window panes going around it, and they're more like you've got the straight structure of the metalwork going down to actually hold the glass in, and then you've got 2 curves going around it. So I'm just going to lightly put those ones in, and I probably won't paint these metal structures. I will just run my ink pen down them quite thickly, and that will probably do for that. But I will draw them in just so that everything's in proportion and everything looks right. And then obviously you've got the structure for the actual light that sits inside the lighthouse, and it looks like it's glass. It's really hard to add detail behind detail, I find, especially with lighthouses, because there's a lot going on inside the glass windows. Basically, I've just added the very basic shape of it, I'll put a little box inside there, and that's where the actual light sits, and I'll probably paint that a warm orange colour. And you can see like there's metal bits running down inside that area that the light sits in, so I will lightly I'm using light so many times, geez. I have no other word for light. I'll very lightly run a thin nibbed pen inside there, and that will just add the detail of it, but I'm not going to worry too much about that, otherwise it will probably just get messy and complex, and we don't want that. Okay, so we'll finish with that glass bit for now. Now outside of that you've got railing running along it, and we'll leave that there for now. Then you've got this main navy blue part on the outside, and that's surrounded again by another bit of railing. So as you can see, there's like a lip that comes out that holds this platform out from the actual lighthouse. Obviously this goes around the entire circumference of the lighthouse, so this is going to help add to like the realism and the 3D-ish aspect that the lighthouse, you know, it's not just 2D, it does continue around the bend where you can't see. So we'll just add slight angles onto the end of those, on the end of that platform, and add the bottom to it. And then that obviously has a railing system going around it as well. And the rails come about, we'll say up to there. Now, I can see that you've got metal coming up for each of the railings, and it will be going around the whole thing. I'm not going to add that in pencil because I know how to put that in with pen, and I'll add that at the end just as like another little detail. I will add just another line here though, which will remind me to add that as pen as well. The thing with painting, I've found, here's expert Anna talking about something she doesn't know, is that basically you don't want to add too much detail, especially if you're inexperienced like me, because it can get just really messy really quickly if you don't really know what you're doing. So I add hints of detail when I'm drawing my buildings or lighthouses or anything like that. And I feel like so far that's just got me by. I mean, as time goes by, I'll practice a lot more. Things will change and improve over time, especially as my style changes and improves. But for now, I don't get too worried if I miss out a couple of things, like if I miss out a railing here or there, or some, like, I don't know, Victorian design or whatever. It's not such a big deal. As long as the main ideas come across, then I'm okay with that. And it helps with like the minimalist look as well. If you're adding too much stuff, then suddenly the page does just get too complicated. Also, great choice with lighthouses as well, because like the majority of them is white, so you don't really have to do much to them. Now let's fix up this door to nowhere. So we'll keep with the basic rectangle shape, although I will like slightly expand that. And like also with architectural drawings, if I haven't said it before, I'll say it again, you got to try and keep your lines the same throughout the whole thing. So if you've got a straight line here and you need this another straight line down here, make sure they're parallel with each other. Same with vertical and diagonal and everything, because that really helps just make an image basically. So if the top of this rectangle is going a certain direction, then I need to make sure the bottom is going a certain direction. And it turns out that I've done it the wrong direction. Whoops. It's going up when it should be going down. It's a very, very slight angle, but it makes all the difference. So if you're having trouble with that, I usually just like lightly run over the original line and then just draw that, like take that angle and that pattern that my wrist is doing and just replicate it right underneath. It helps me most of the time. And then it's got a slight archway in it. Yeah, it's got a lot of coloured detail. So there's like a couple of blues up there. And there's definitely a blue platform underneath, and then you've got like an arched thingo underneath that platform. That looks like something. Like I said, we don't need to have it exact, just so that it represents. And then we've got this edging along the bottom of the lighthouse. That looks like it's got a bit of a hexagonal feel about it. So there's a slight indentation of the concrete where it just slightly changes angle as it goes around the lighthouse. So we'll try and replicate that same idea. And then the bottom of the lighthouse again has the same sort of hexagonal, well, it won't be hexagonal, but you know, it's got a lot of sides to it. So once again, making sure the lines are parallel with what the top ones are doing makes a world of difference. Just to save battery on my camera and stuff, I'll just quickly sketch out the cottage as well. Then we can start using some micron pens to go over with ink, and then finally we'll get onto the watercolour. So now we've done the outline of the lighthouse and we've gotten rid of all that grey lead. It's looking very basic and very plain, so it's time to start doing some watercolour and bringing it all to life a little bit. I have left a bit of grey lead in the bottom part of the image just because that signifies the road, and I didn't know if I wanted to like make that permanent with ink, so I've just left it for now. The bottom of the image is going to be a bit gritty anyway with the grass and everything, so I'm okay with leaving that there. The great thing about lighthouses is that there's not many colours involved, so we're literally just going to be using navy blue, maybe a bit of brown, a bit of grey to add a bit of like grime to the building. To start off with, we're just going to mix up some navy blue and we'll add that to the roof. So for the navy blue colour, I'm just mixing a blue with just a touch of black, and that should create a nice dark blue that we're after. So that blue that I'm putting down at the moment, it's the first layer, and it's already way too blue. I should have made it a bit darker, but that's okay. That's the good thing about watercolours, you can just keep adding layers and layers onto it, as long as you let it dry properly. So this base layer that we're putting down at the moment, it's a very, you don't really have to put too much effort into it, in that we know that we're going to add a lot more layers to it over time, which will bring it out, so the first layer will always look very plain and very uninspired, but that's just completely expected at this point. Alright, so we'll just let that blue dry, and then I'm going to add another layer to it and definitely make it a whole lot darker than what it is currently. So now that I've got that second layer down, I think we're going to keep it with that as the base colour. Then we need to add a few more details just to, I don't know, bring out the blue a lot more. And what I usually do is I add slightly darker versions of the blue, even black in some cases, just around the edges to show a bit of wear and tear on the actual paintwork. So I'm going to just select this thinner brush, otherwise things are going to get hectic way too fast. And I'm going to just use the exact same paint that I just used for the base, but I'm just going to dab it in certain places. So if we're looking at the image of the lighthouse again, you can see that the ball on top, it's quite dark towards the bottom of it. Actually, I may just darken up, add just a slight bit more black to that original paint. So the bottom of the ball is quite dark, so we'll just add like a splosh of dark paint to it. I hope this comes out on the camera as well. Otherwise it's completely useless, but I hope you get the idea, and you can see where I am making the brush strokes at least. So when you look at the roof, you've got those lines coming down. Each one of those lines casts a shadow, and that just makes it a bit more darker. So we're sort of just darkening up those lines with paint. And then just under the roof, you've got that second sort of rim. So I'm just going to, actually I'm going to use black. Just get some black paint on my brush and then just paint that bottom part of the roof. And that adds just a nice bit of shadowing there. I didn't actually draw it in, but there is like another bit of a indentation, I guess. And that's quite dark as well, so we'll just paint that. Try and get an even line happening there with the paintbrush. A similar thing to where the balcony is, just the top of that and the bottom of that walkway, like going around the circumference of the lighthouse, that's very dark. It's basically black. So I've still just got pure black on my paintbrush. So I'm just painting the top section and the bottom section of that walkway. Well, if we look at the main section, so this section of the blue, I'm just going to grab more of that really dark blue paint mixture that I made before. And if you can see on the image, well, the lighting's pretty flat actually, but I think we'll just add like a bit of texture by just dabbing a bit of this darker blue colour around the sides. So once that bit's dry, I'll add another layer to that one. So once again, for the couple of blue rings that go around the bottom, I've just put a bit of blue paint on the bottom half of that top blue ring there. And then on the bottom blue ring, it gets very dark at ground level, so I'm just going to put just straight black onto that. That really helps bring out the 3D. That looks really good. I think with my black paint actually still on my brush, I'm just going to go over the struts. Are they struts? I don't know, but the metalwork that's holding up the balcony. I'm just going to just add a bit of black paint to that. I don't mind if it's like completely covered in black or if there's a bit of blue showing. It'll just help add a bit of shadowing to it. I'll just add in the door to nowhere as well in the middle of the lighthouse. I actually forgot to paint that blue. And I'll just darken up the blue around the outside as well. And then similar for the cottage roof, I will just mix up a bit more of that nice navy blue colour. Once again, just sort of splash it around the place, just to add a bit of texture to the roof. And then for the windows as well, in general when I am painting windows for houses, I usually do add like a navy blue mixture and then just splash a bit of black in as well. I try not to make both windows like a flat colour. They need to have like just a slight difference in them, so it's just sort of splashing colour about, and wherever it lands, because you don't want both windows to look completely identical, otherwise it just takes away from the realism of it all. To be honest, I didn't actually do much like pen work around this veranda area, and now I am having to suffer with the mess that I've made and just try and bring that to life a bit with my brush. If you are painting at home and following this tutorial, I don't know why I laugh, please just make sure you get all the details down before you do actually start painting. That's what I usually do when I'm not on camera, but because I have a certain amount of battery life on my cameras, and I haven't yet bought spare batteries, I'm sort of a bit rushed for time, and so I can't spend as much on here as I'd like to, because my batteries will run out and then it takes hours for them to charge back up again, and by that point, like, the day's over, and then I've just lost the will to film more videos. So that's why when I'm doing tutorials, it's just a little bit of a rush. One day I'll have the right equipment and I'll be able to film a decent tutorial and have it like exactly how I would do it, like in real time. That'd be cool to do, like an hour or two long video. Well, it'd be cool for me, I don't know if you'd be interested in it at all. But at the moment, I'm racing against time with battery life and also with sunlight, so it's a bit of a rush job, but hopefully it just shows the general pattern that I do take when I am painting, and you can try and replicate that yourself. Alright, so let's just leave that blue for a while and we'll let everything properly settle down and dry. And in the meantime, we'll look at the white of the lighthouse. It's not a perfect white. Of course, there's a bit of grey in there as well. So what I'm going to do to start off with is I'm just going to mix up pure white. Well, not pure white actually, there's just a touch of brown in there from another time. And I'm just going to just lightly paint the main white bits. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm actually keeping most of the pigment over on the left-hand side and keeping the right-hand side of the lighthouse just pure white as the paper was. And then while that's still quite wet, I'm just going to get like the touch of grey and just sort of splonk that around a bit. And let the water sort of carry the pigment out across the page. I'm just going to use a similar method for the white of the cottage as well. Colouring it in some areas, but leaving other areas just completely white. Sort of adds the illusion that everything's painted, but it's not really. I think for the sake of this video, I may just do like a classic grasslands. I won't worry as much for the hill and the road that's going around there, purely because, like I said, my battery is running low now, and I don't want to waste the entire video time just focusing on a landscape when I should be focusing on the lighthouse. So while we're waiting for the lighthouse to dry a bit more again, let's just paint quite a yellow-brown textured landscape around. And sometimes I find that when I am painting like just grassland like this, it sort of helps bring out the image anyway. If it's just very lightly coloured, it just makes it look like it's actually sitting on something, but the main focus of the image is the lighthouse, not the land surrounding it. Around where the lighthouse and the buildings are, I just darken that lightly with a bit of green. Just sort of helps add a bit of shadow to it. And it's very rough, but sort of like that look. And then even I could replicate the same idea with the sea as well, but I will just let the actual grass dry, because if the sea touches the grass, then we're just going to have green going everywhere. So we'll let that properly settle down. While I do that, I could just do a bit of colour inside the where the actual light of the lighthouse is. So we'll just paint that with a like a grey-blue colour. Oh, the cottage is a bit of a mess. I apologise. Things don't go to plan sometimes with filming a tutorial. At this point I'm wishing I didn't do the water horizon, like the horizon of the water so high. I could have actually lowered that, but the line's there now, so once it's in ink we just got to go with it. Alright, so I'm just going to get a bit of grey paint and just add a bit more detail to the main part of the lighthouse. So we're just going to do like a bit of a streak of grey down there, maybe darken up this side too actually, just to help bring it out a bit from the background. And also dab a bit underneath here as well, just to help with the shadow effect. And sometimes I do pull the greys out a bit more. So originally, like you saw, I just put it down with like the paint underneath was quite wet, and then I added more wet paint to the top. Now that I'm just painting wet on dry, those colours are a lot more bolder, so you can sort of pull them out a bit more and create more of a worn effect. But you've got to be careful with that, because like you can easily just overdo it. And I may just go in with a bit of a darker grey and just darken those bits up a little bit, very slightly. And if you do add like a bit too much grey, like you make it too dark, you can always just add water to the page and try and bring that out a little bit more and try and soften the colour a little bit. It usually works. As long as your paper's of a decent quality and you don't overwork it, you can add like, you know, a bit more water to the page and she'll be okay. Now I just need to fix up the sea in the background, because it's not that great at the moment. I think if I just get some darker blue and just sort of do a couple of streaks here and there. I've never been good at water, and I just don't put the practice in for it. We'll go over everything with another fine liner. So instead of 0.3, I'm going to use 005 nib size. I'm just going to darken up the outlines of the lighthouse, so especially where this main building is here, the main part of the lighthouse. I'm just going to run the pen down there for both sides, and that really should bring it out from the background. So this part, it comes down to how you're really feeling about the painting. So if you want to keep some things light, you don't have to darken up every single line. So for instance, I'm not going to really darken up where the actual light is of the lighthouse, because I just don't feel like it should stand out that much. I feel like the main structure of the building should. And sometimes running over the edges of the watercolour with a pen as well, if you've gone out of line slightly, this helps sharpen it up a bit and hide those little mistakes. So I'll just do this fence as well going around, because I just remembered about that. The fence is just made up of a few poles at not random intervals, but certain intervals. So I'm just going to put them in. And this is purely by eye. And each pole sort of has like a little knobby bit on top. So we'll do that. Sometimes it's just the little things that count. And then I may just very lightly with the same pen, I'm just putting in more railing on the side. And then very similar idea as well with where the glass is too. And I may actually get a heavier pen. I've got a 01 nib-sized micron as well, and that will actually help bring out separate the dark blue from the black. So yeah, sometimes because of the small nib size of the 005, it can get clogged up with paint a little bit, but the 0.1 that doesn't seem to have a problem with much, so I usually use that when I'm painting over really dark paint or really thick paint as well. Okay, so at this point I'm really running out of batteries on this camera. I really need to get a spare battery. So I think that will probably do for that now. I hope that's sort of given a general gist on how I paint lighthouses with watercolour. It feels like the end of this video is a bit of a rush, but my battery is about to die on my camera, so that sort of has to be the end of the video. If I was to carry on just fiddling with this, I'd probably like add a few lines on the side of the lighthouse, like so. And that would help just with the texture of the lighthouse. So I probably will just do a bit of that now while I'm talking. And I think mainly it looks okay. For a rush job, it'll do. It was more or less just trying to show you the same techniques that I run through with painting lighthouses. So as long as I've sort of got the techniques down, or the process that I usually follow, then hopefully you've gotten something from it. I hope so anyway. But thanks so much for suggesting this video idea, because I enjoyed making it. It's just, I wish I didn't have to rush with these camera batteries, but anyway, that's how it is. And please let me know if this was useful or helpful at all, and if you'd want anything changing with the way that I do tutorials, because I haven't made many tutorials. I'm still sort of learning the process of it. But yeah, so if you have any ideas or thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. But apart from that, I will see you in another video. If you have made it this far, thank you so much, and have a lovely day. Bye!